Switching topics, and my colleague Andrew Clennell spoke to opposition leader Peter Dutton this morning. Peter Dutton is vowing to deliver a second referendum if the Indigenous voice to Parliament fails on October 14, maintaining that he sees the current voice proposal as divisive. What are your thoughts on a potential second referendum?
Well, this proposal is divisive. You only have to look at the polls. And the Prime Minister's been told on a number of occasions that if this was just about constitutional recognition, I sense that over 80-90% of Australians would support that. But unfortunately, he's conflated what isn't a new model, what isn't a new proposal in the voice. The voice is something we've had before. We've had a representative body before. It's called ATSIC. And for us that represent rural and remote Australia, we live with the consequences of that. We need a better bureaucracy, not a bigger one, a forensic audit of the over $4 billion that's been spent to close the gap. But where Peter Dutton is where the Nationals have been for some time. I've been saying for well over a couple of months now is that there'll be no victory lap from the Nationals if this referendum goes down. But if there is a proper process around constitutional recognition, which is a constitutional convention that all Australians can turn up to, not one that he's relied on, where only a cohort of the population were able to go to Uluru and have their input about what the change of the Constitution should be, then we are wanting to be a constructive part of that. So Peter Dutton is right, and the Prime Minister was disappointingly, I thought, overreached when he said, when launching the Yes case on Wednesday, when he said this closed the door on constitutional recognition. What you want is your political leaders to show leadership. And when you've got it wrong, and you've got the question wrong, you should go to the intent of what Australians want. Australians want constitutional recognition, but they don't want a voice. And the Prime Minister hasn't been big enough to see that. We've asked him to show some courage of leadership. We'll still be there regardless of the Nationals. And now Peter Dutton's joined us, and I think that's a good thing.
Andrew Clennell also spoke to Peter Dutton about John Farnham giving the approval for his iconic hit song, You're the Voice. He mentioned some of the lyrics, try to understand it. In those words and in the song, I should say, to become the official anthem. What do you think? Do we need to have You're the Voice as the Yes anthem?
Oh, look, it's a catchy tune from the 80s, but this is far more serious than just a catchy tune. And the fact that the Prime Minister hasn't been prepared to give all the details to the Australian people about how this voice would work, what are the mechanics of it, says that he doesn't trust the Australian people. If you aren't prepared to bring the Australian people into your trust, then why should the Australian people trust you? The Prime Minister's had every chance. In fact, he's got the next 2 weeks to table the legislation of the voice and the mechanics of it, not just for politicians to see, but I think for all Australians to see. This is a deeply personal decision for them. And catchy tunes and vibes don't actually cut it. What cuts it is giving the detail about how you want to change the Constitution, something that is a sacred document to our democracy and to the people who have fought for it and protected it for generations. And we are now the custodians of it. We've got a responsibility to know what we're voting for. And unfortunately, this Prime Minister's put a proposal he's not prepared to share. He's got 2 weeks to do it. If he doesn't do it in the next 2 weeks of Parliament, then he doesn't trust the Australian people. I just say to them, forget the tunes. Just don't trust the Prime Minister.
We have to wrap it up there, but Nationals leader David Littleproud, thank you as always for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.